things we can do to reduce the consumption that we have in the city. Drought-resistant planting, as Jim already said. I believe we're taking a look at Fair Oaks Park for the fields that are there, being able to try and take a look at possibly transitioning those to artificial turf instead of grass. That has to be looked at because I understand that playing on an artificial field is much warmer than as an athlete than as regular turf. But we need to look at zoning rules and other regulations that we put in place for how we have homes and newer homes that are being built and newer businesses reduce their consumption of water. I think we should also take a look at, as a city, how we're involved with Hetch Hetchy and our water supply that comes from there. Right now, the city treats that as just a pass-through bill that we all get for ourselves. And we've all seen what's happening with the growth of that bill. So maybe the city should go ahead and implement a plan to go ahead and doing a little more due diligence on how the Hetch Hetchies doing there and being involved in that process so they can make sure that the supply that's coming to us is secure and will be there in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Hoffman.
Steve Hoffman, seat 2. So obviously the one easiest way to reduce the amount of water, or at least to curtail its growth, curtail the demand of water, is to limit the number of new living units in Sunnyvale. That's the obvious way to do it. I actually find it kind of curious that the candidates amongst us that are in favor of exceeding the city's general plan development in terms of building living units are the ones that are in favor also of reducing or at least studying the usage of water. They don't go together, it's one or the other. Again, there's a lot of things that we can do as individuals. I personally have eliminated my lawns in my house and I've cut my water bill by about $100 a month. That's something that I chose to do. I would not create any legislation to force anybody to do this, but I would like to share my experience and share that there are options. Again, there's two ways that government can go ahead and influence the residents. One is through legislation and one is through education. I'm a firm believer in education and maybe a little bit of regulation to encourage it, but education has to come first. Thank you.
Mr. Larson.
Gustav Larson, seat 1. So water is really a regional issue. It's not just Sunnyvale. It requires collaboration with all the other cities in the area and also the regional authorities. We're not going to solve this all by ourselves. And actually, it's not obvious that curtailing growth would solve the water problem because those people would still need to live somewhere. And if they're going to live down in Gilroy or San Martin, number one, they're going to have to drive farther. That's more congestion on the roads. And they're more likely to have single-family homes there, which use up a lot more water. So that would actually make our water problem worse. So regionally, we actually need to have people living closer to their work. We need to support families who do want to live in single-family homes, have that option, because that does use less water. We can also keep our existing single-family homes because other people want that, but it's good to have both those options. And this is actually why we need experienced leaders on Sunnyvale City Council who actually understand the connections between these issues, because if we take a simplistic approach, simplistic solution, that actually makes things worse in the long run. Thank you.
Mr. Fraser.
Yeah, Andy Fraser, seat 1. So regarding the idea that high-density housing is actually a solution to our water problems, this is yet another point where my opponent and I disagree. The key thing that we need to, the best opportunity we have, again, is to improve our recycled water capacity on our network. And again, number one to do that is replacing the water pollution control plant, which right now does not produce enough recycled water, and it doesn't produce high enough quality water. Right now it's a little bit too high in salinity. So that has to be replaced soon because it's about 50 years old. That will give us a much bigger capacity. There's also been some on and off programs to work with other cities to share recycled water. This was called the Intertide project. First it was off, it may be on again. Hopefully it'll be back on soon because Some cities, if you produce too much recycled water, if you can't use it right away, you have to at some point wind down your production and then ramp it up again. But once we replace the water pollution control plant and have a bigger supply, we have to build out the network. Right now, only the northern third of the city is supplied with recycled water. We have 20 parks, golf courses, and sports facilities in the city. Only 8 of them are irrigated with recycled water. And parks are like the biggest waste of potable water. And again, regarding the Wolf Road, the important thing about the Wolf Road trunk isn't so much getting the water to Apple, but it's providing a trunk that provides recycled water to the southern part of the city.
Thank you, Mr. Merrick.
Thank you. Tad Merrick for Council Seat 3. Mr. Griffith incorrectly stated that all I want are single-family homes. That time has come and gone. The city used to be 7% rentals in 1970. Now it's about 50% rentals, so 49%, somewhere in there. I'd like to see more home ownership. And that doesn't necessarily mean single-family homes, but it does mean home ownership. And somebody scoffed at my idea of bringing water down from Oregon, but they scoffed at the idea of the Hoover Dam and bringing water to LA, or building the canal from the Sierra down to LA. LA would be a population of 20,000 if they didn't have water. So bringing it from Oregon isn't a far reach. It's going to be expensive, but if we want to keep letting people into the state, that's something that we're going to have to consider. And that's going to be a long-term solution. That's not going to be a short-term solution. I would suggest that the city develop perhaps 10 different models of land use, landscaping that has limited water use. And they pay for them. And then the residents can go around and look at these 10 different options and say, oh, now there's an idea. Maybe I'll do that for my yard and help reduce the amount of water. But the water that you put on your lawn actually goes into the aquifer anyway. Thank you.
We're now at audience questions.